It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Conversations with Joan. Conversations with Joan will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life's Conversations with Joan. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Conversations with Joan focuses on topics that are important to your life, from health and wellness to professional development to personal well-being. Change makers join me to share their insights, tips, and strategies so you can thrive and live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. Now, let's start talking. Whatever your dream may be, the idea of actually following that dream can be terrifying. Instead of doing what you really want, you may strive to meet the expectations of others because you fear what they may think. Today's guest, Jess Leprotto, had a big dream and he went for it. His passion made him unstoppable, and today, he's achieving tremendous success in his chosen field. Jess is an actor, dancer, singer, and Broadway performer whose credits include A Beautiful Noise, Hello, Dolly, Carousel, Cats, Newsies, among others. Jess also appeared in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Welcome, Jess. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jess, I'm so happy that you're here with us today because you've been building such an amazing career. When did you first know that you wanted to be a performer?
Oh, very young. Because obviously in my field, I've really, as a musical theater performer, I sing, dance, and act primarily all at the same time sometimes. And my first love was dance. That's how I kind of broke into the arts, more or less. My sister, who's 3 years older than me, started dancing, and it's very much in the essence of Mike, the character from A Chorus Line, to where I kind of caught the bug by attending her dance classes and sitting on my stomach looking through the crack of the door and seeing her class as it was in progress. So I was very much intrigued very early. Then my parents were like, let's give this a try, see what happens. And I stuck with it. And then my interest kind of grew because maybe obviously I had a lot of energy or just a lot of desire to just kind of keep doing it. So they just kind of threw something at the wall and said, let's try voice lessons. And then slowly, as I grew older, I was just getting more and more exposed to performing. I was a competitive dancer too, so I was exposed to a lot of different styles of dance, styles of music to dance to, a lot of great teachers along the way. And obviously the other end to that was what I was doing as far as a viewer, watching very classic MGM movie musicals such as Singin' in the Rain, West Side Story, and many others, 42nd Street. And I was very much inspired by those films. And then obviously there are the more modern movie musicals too that I grew up with. And of course I was only 30 minutes away from New York and from Midtown in the theater district where a lot of Broadway shows are. So it wasn't a hard task to be inspired by all the things that were right there in front of me. So, and I just kind of kept at it. And yeah, and I think, you know what, I had so much support along the way. My folks, my family were very supportive of me, and obviously they saw something in me, and maybe I felt the same way too. And I was like, well, we'll give this a shot and see if there's any longevity to it or sustainability, because a profession like mine, in an industry like mine, it is never certain. It is always, there is so much uncertainty, and there's 99% rejection. So especially growing up as a child performer and a child actor, there's a lot of it too, because there are so many other kids and actors who are up for the same roles as you, whether it be for shows or for voice commercials or regular commercials or regional theater, whatnot. So obviously you get that taste of it very quickly, but I think I just enjoyed it so much, and more or less it was really something that I knew that I could do, that I was like, if there was something else to fall back on, I was like, what could I fall back on? And I was like, I'm all in.
That rejection that you just mentioned, how do you keep that from stopping you so that you can stay positive and move forward?
That's a great question. Well, one thing about this industry is that they really look for, individuality and artists and performers that are so different and unique. And there's that thing that I knew that I had that I know that I could carry. That's, my innate quality as a performer. And I'm sure someone else who would be next to me, another performer, has their own special innate qualities as well that make them so special. So that kind of creativity and unique ability, or just that, that style or timing or something like that. All the great performers that I know have that down, and in spades. It's something that is so original, and I feel like that was something that I could find and hone in on more and more and more. So when it came to rejection, obviously that's always disappointing when it happens. But I think the one thing that even to this day, I remind myself a lot of is that no matter what the outcome is, it's always just about giving your best, and for me, it's all about preparation and knowing that I feel comfortable. I'm not doing something that I don't have 100% commitment to, that I need to put 110,000% commitment into, so that when someone is judging a performance of mine in an audition room, they're judging my best, not my second best, not my third best. So that is the one thing that I take away of. So when it comes to rejection, and it happens more times than not, I'm like, well, of course I'm disappointed, but I know that I gave it my all. I can never let them say that they didn't see me give that my best shot. So, and you just kind of continue on through the ebbs and flows and the peaks and valleys of the business. A lot of it sometimes is also just through connections too, and with whether it's a small gig, a slight gig, a gig on the side and stuff too. Like, there are always those people that remember your face and remember your name and they remember your talent. They know what you can do, and they refer you all the time. So that's always a great plus too along the way.
You mentioned preparation. What goes into getting ready for an audition?
Oh, yeah. When it comes to preparation, like growing up and training, I was pretty much always on the go, whether it be the competitive dance side at my local dance studio, which I competed for many, many years. And that had its season to where it would be like spring to summer, whether it was my middle school or high school, where I participated in school musicals and fall plays and summer theater and Christmas shows and concert band and jazz band and concert choir, or whether it be anything professional. I think the one thing that was always about preparation was that I was learning on the job. I was learning, in the midst of it too. So I was picking up things along the way and knowing how to prepare myself in tight situations to where you have such and such amount of time, very little time, to prepare something, so that once you know the essence of something and you can prepare it and you have that down solid, then you're like, okay, good. I feel good with this, and I can build from that. And if they want anything else from that, that's always a good sign. But preparation along the way was always just trying to pick up things from other people step by step. So that's always a plus for me. So I was always active. So that preparation, was great exposure for me.
After putting in so much work to achieve a goal, when you finally got to step out on that Broadway stage, what did it feel like?
Oh, yeah. Well, my Broadway debut, I was 11 years old, so I was very young. And I grew up with a lot of other child actors and child performers as well. And, at that certain point, there were a lot of younger actors that were pursuing this career, and that were really, finding their moment, or they're finding their opportunities on the Broadway stage. So when I had my opportunity to make my debut, I was a vacation understudy in The Boy from Oz. I was understudying the role of young Peter Allen, because it was a story and a musical based on his life and his catalog. And I was a vacation swing, so that meant that I was not there all the time at the show. The show ran for a year. I was there for about 2 or 3 stints, and they would be about 2 or 3 weeks, give or take. And I remember getting the call that I'd be making my debut. I'd be going on for the role, and I was very excited. I was very prepared because I had known the show. I had great dance captains from the show that taught me the role, and it was pretty, straightforward. And then when I got to go on, it was exhilarating, because you're finally, after so many rehearsals in the studio and so many rehearsals on stage, dealing with props and sets, and the last element that you have to add to that is the audience. And then when you see that audience in the midst of what's going on, it is exhilarating. And it really is a thrill ride. And the one moment that stands out, of course, was at the very end, as everything goes somehow planned miraculously. Hugh Jackman, who was the star and lead of the show, who played Peter Allen, after the curtain call, which was all as planned, curtain comes down. That's normally the end of the show. Hugh Jackman gestures to the stagehand who's operating the main curtain. And the stagehand hoists up the main curtain one more time to have Hugh Jackman push down this 11-year-old actor to the downstage to take one more final bow. So that really was the cherry on the cake. It was a great way to kind of celebrate my baptism, I suppose.
Do you get nervous before a performance?
I mean, there's always that sense of like that anxiousness, that adrenaline rush, and to where after all the preparation, sometimes your mind can go blank because now it's the real thing. So there's always that kind of second guessing. But once you know your steps and you know where you are, and just there's always that feel to where it's like, okay, I'm in a comfortable place now. But it's always that initial reaction where you're like, oh yes, it's a show. Yes, there's people there.
Would you share one of your favorite Broadway stories with us?
I've done 9 Broadway shows, so there's always some hilarious stories. There are too many hilarious stories to share from the production of Hello, Dolly, because that was like the zeitgeist at the moment in the Broadway season, to when Bette Midler was starring in the show, and we were just in the middle of it was the place to be at. So there's obviously many, many stories involving Bette and her interaction with the cast and the show itself, and so many people who came through the show, celebrities who came to see the show. But there's one story that has become like Broadway lore, and that was when I was in Newsies. I did the show for 2 years, and this was about a year into the run. One of our original actors had a moment in one of the big production numbers in Act 1 called Seize the Day, when they pull into these amazing turns. They do many, many turns on this newspaper, and it was always a crowd pleaser. So that actor left the show. And normally, these were ensemble tracks, so swings normally came in to cover these tracks. And they realized that they wanted to find a way to make sure that they didn't put so much pressure on the swings to deliver this, because it is such a moment to where you're dealing with an inanimate object and you don't know the outcome sometimes because it's a newspaper. So they asked me if I would be willing to step in, just so that so the swings they have much more to focus on, because swings are really the bedrock of this industry. So when it comes to making sure that they have all the other things checked off, they have much bigger things to worry about than dealing with this moment. So they were like, well, let's give this to Jess. So they asked me, and I said yes. And it takes a second to kind of, because you're stepping out of your own track, and then you go into this little specialty feature for a hot second, and you go back to your track. So it was a Saturday matinee, 2:00. I still remember the day. It was January 26, 2013, and I was in motion. I was in motion of this moment with doing these turns on this newspaper, and I felt my weight going forward because I'm downstage center, and I noticed that I'm about to fall into the orchestra pit, and the conductor, Mark Hummel, who is amazing and responsible for saving my life, grabbed me with his left hand as to break up my fall, was still conducting with his right hand, mind you. And in the amount of time, and these are seconds, these are seconds going by, there are 3 tumbling crosses that happened. So by the end of the 3rd cross, my adrenaline is pumping at this point. So I managed to think about how I was going to get back up on stage in time for the end of the number. So I managed to step on a keyboard, the net, which was sturdy enough to hold my weight, and I did a dive roll into the tableau after the last tumbling cross to hit the button of the number, and the audience went berserk. They had no idea what they experienced. It was just complete miracle that happened. And all of my castmates who were watching, who saw me go down, they were all thinking to themselves as they're singing the rest of the song, he's not coming back up. He's not coming back up. Oh, he's coming back up. He's coming back up. So, and they were just as surprised and shocked as the audience was. But at the whole place, I'm surprised that building is even still standing after the roar that we heard. It was nuts.
That's such a great story, Jess, because it represents what so many of us go through on a daily basis. We all get knocked down, and no matter how much we want to stay down, it's important for us to figure out a way to get up, whether we have to step on a keyboard or whatever we have to do to get up and keep moving forward.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that ties in back to what happens with rejection, too, because, I know that a lot of people in today's day and age, and even before that, to where self-esteem is such a thing, to where it's such a precious thing. So how do you maintain that self-esteem when there are so many peaks and valleys that you go through in life, and either personally or professionally? So, but the one thing to be certain of is to always, stay positive and have think, glass half full, and to really put it into perspective that, when it comes to our own stumbles or whatever that may be for whoever goes through life with any of these little, trips here and there, it's okay to know that that is not the end of the road. That is not the end of the road for anyone, and that there is always a tomorrow. And I go through these all the time. I go through moments to where I'm just like, wow, I'm just not on my A game right now. But I know that I have been there before, and I can get back to there. So, and I feel like there's always that opportunity for everyone to have that positive vibe and just come around the corner. And it's okay. It's okay. We stumble, we make mistakes, but we know that we can definitely rise to the occasion and make the most of it and come out of it even more victoriously, which is great.
You also appeared in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, and that was a special movie for me as well as everyone else around here who knows you. But I also know Rachel Zegler because she went to grammar school with both of my sons. So to see both of you in that movie was very special for us. What was it like for you when you received the call that you got the part?
Oh, well, I had the fortune to work with, prior to the film, the choreographer for the film. His name is Justin Peck. He's the resident choreographer from New York City Ballet. And he was the choreographer that was brought on for the revival of Carousel, for which he won a Tony Award for. So I was fortunate to be in that ensemble and to work alongside Justin and get to know his style as a dancer and a choreographer, and we had a great time. And it was on that show that I was asked to do some pre-production for the film, not knowing that I was going to be a part of it later down the road. I was just like, well, this is great because, maybe later down the road I can at least be considered or audition for it too. So with Justin's blessing, who knows? And I met Steven through that process. And then I was actually out on the road with the tour of Hello, Dolly. I was playing Barnaby Tucker with Betty Buckley starring as Dolly Levi. And it was a couple months into the tour where I was asked to come in back to New York to audition for the film after a submission tape and putting myself on film and on tape for the casting director. This was around the callback sessions for the film. And I was like, well, this is a great opportunity. Let's see what happens. And I remember reading for the character of Arab, and Tony Kushner, who's the Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright from Angels in America, was penning the screenplay. So I knew that this was no joke. I knew that this was top-notch, top-drawer project that was going to only bring the best of the best to the table. So I knew that I had to deliver, and I was so taken by just his dialogue, his style of language, and just the English language to what Arab was saying, because obviously it takes place as a period piece in the late 1950s. So there's a lot of slang and a lot of terminology that is so funny in the more juvenile sense that I was like, oh, I can definitely have a field trip with this character. Mm-hmm. And they let me play, and I got to audition for it and read, and they laughed at a lot of stuff because he's a very comical character, being that he's always just like this little snot who's, making fun of so many people around him. And I remember I was back on tour. I came back because I went back to New York a few times to audition for the film, from the callbacks to the final callbacks. And not long after I got back to the road for the tour, we were in Miami, Florida, and I got a call from my agent, and who said that I booked the film, and I was like, well, that's pretty fantastic. I'm about to make my motion picture debut in a Steven Spielberg film, which of course is now a new adaptation of West Side Story, which I mentioned earlier was one of the films that I grew up with, Robert Wise and Jerry Robbins' original film, right, based on the musical. So I was so taken by the possibility of that, and just now that was coming to fruition, I was very, very excited. And of course, I was getting to play along with so many people who I already had known in the business prior, and a lot of those guys who I got to work with as Jets and Sharks, I did Newsies with, I did Carousel with, Cats, so many other shows. And it was a compliment knowing that I was getting to work with these great performers who they considered and that they hired for this film. Because one thing about that musical and that experience was like, if they were to cast it a whole different way and not hire Broadway caliber performers, I do not think it would have had the same impact. And the fact that I got to work with so many people who I knew, who I could have a great time playing around with and being on set with, and then having Steven Spielberg kind of be thrown into the mix was pretty amazing. I mean, it was a unique experience because, I don't know if any of us had experienced a motion picture shoot like that. I had done extra work for TV and film prior to, but not to the lengths of this. And to have Steven Spielberg give acting choices, give me different takes to play around with some different choices and stuff too. Like you bask in that as an actor. So I was very, very fortunate that I was very conscious and cognizant of the fact that this does not happen every day, Jess. This does not happen every day. And to be directed by a master storyteller like Steven Spielberg, you better not take that for granted, my friend, because he is obviously one of the great storytellers. And when we finally got to see the film, after we had a slight delay because of the pandemic, but when we finally got to see the film, it was magical to see what he was able to put together with all of our performances. And it was so satisfying. And I was just so taken by just the love and the admiration from not just our community who embraced the film, but just the movie community at large, who just really appreciated the film and what we did with it. And, you know, obviously tipping our hats to the original, but knowing how we can bring it to the 21st century. So that was a great feeling and just a great experience overall.
Jess, what are you working on now? What do you have coming up?
That's a great question. Well, I had just finished Neil Diamond, the Neil Diamond musical, Beautiful Noise, back in late June. Right now, I have some things in the hopper which are confidential right now, so I really can't talk about too much. But I do have some gigs that I do on the side here and there. I am a part of the revolving door of people who are part of this group called the Doo-Wop Project, and they tour around the country and around the world. And they're a great doo-wop group that obviously do a lot of the catalog of the doo-wop genre, but also they know how to doo-wopify other contemporary songs too. So I love getting to join those guys on that realm. I also teach frequently, you know, be it at local studios or at Steps on Broadway or a Broadway Dance Center. So that's exciting. And I'm always a part of different shows in development. All these fun little things that I get to do right now at the moment are really, you know, keeping my schedule pretty busy. So, and obviously I'm always auditioning. So that's the other thing too, to always keep that, not only for the sense of booking work, but also as a muscle, to keep that muscle nice and loose so that it doesn't get too rusty.
Jess, where can our listeners go to learn more about you and your work?
They can follow me on my Instagram page. That's at the Jess Leprotto. They can also follow me on Facebook. I have a YouTube page as well that has a lot of my dance reels, and I have a short film that I did a couple years ago, as well as a lot of different videos. I also produce music and write music as well, so I have a lot of music available on Spotify, Apple Music, and a lot of other of your music streaming platforms. But yeah, that's where people can find me.
And finally, Jess, what would you say to someone who's listening to you right now who has a dream, no matter what it may be? What's your best advice for that person?
Well, I would say be a sponge in the sense that, you know, absorbing all elements of your profession, I think, is pretty important and it makes you more insightful about what you're doing as playing your part, but also knowing what other people do to play their part as well. And I believe in research. I believe in, you know, just going, like, I know a lot of people spend many times on YouTube looking at do-it-yourself videos and cat videos and so many other little things here and there. But I look at it for research because there's a lot of archival footage on YouTube. And not in the sense of doing it for an audition, but just for time's sake, just looking at things, looking at videos of either dancers or behind the scenes featurettes or, you know, anything in between. So there's always something to learn from that realm. And, you know, the other thing too is that, you know, a lot of people go into auditions very scared because there are people behind the table that are very intimidating looking, and it seems like they're kind of like, you know, bad news bears. But to be honest, they can't do a show without you. That's why they're there. You know, for those who are looking to pursue a career in this profession, it's always important to know that, you know, they wouldn't be holding auditions today because they need a show. They need to make a show, and the only way they can make a show is with people like yourself. So for those who go into to an audition, never be overwhelmed by, you know, if a creative team looks intimidating or not. That's not your job as the auditionee going in. So your job is to give it your all. I remember there's a great quote from Sammy Davis Jr., who said something to the effect of, never let the audience say, gee, I didn't like their performance. I didn't like, the commitment they put into the performance. It seemed like there was a little lackadaisy or a little lazy or a little phoning it in. Never give the audience or the creative team that option to say that. That's respect. That's respect for the artist, knowing that, well, at least they gave it their all. They might not be right for this role, for this show, but I respect what they did because they gave it their all and they committed to what they were asked to do. So, and that is the biggest thing at the end. And also and I know it's such a cliche, but just to be yourself. It's very easy to be a cookie cutter of someone else, but in the end, that won't get you very, very far. So it's really just about being yourself and just letting people, embrace that too.
Jess, thank you so much for joining us. You really have such an amazing attitude, and you're such a wonderful example that with dedication, hard work, and passion, anything is possible. So I really appreciate you being here with us.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided is the opinion of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read our digital articles, and be sure to subscribe to our mailing list. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.